Welcome everyone to a podcast, and it's a privilege today to have Lela Koopal from Partner. How are you, Lela?
Hi, great to be here. Thank you so much, Alan.
No, it's great to have you. I think it's very exciting because you come from a very diverse, relevant background. You work in the Salesforce side, and you work in the consulting side at Accenture. Now you also do consulting for partners. So very excited to hear some of your journey.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited to have this conversation.
So why don't we start from the beginning? You started working at Salesforce on the ISB side. Can you tell us a little bit of that experience and how it's like to work at the mothership?
Yeah, so I actually started as a solution engineer on the direct side. So I was doing discoveries, demos with clients, owning the technical part of the sale. But I had worked at an ISV prior to joining Salesforce, and there just wasn't a great alignment with direct sales at that time for me in my career. I didn't really enjoy it. So when there was an opportunity to jump over to the partnership side, I was super excited about that because I had lived and breathed that experience as a partner before. But it was a lot of fun. It was a really interesting time. I joined the team in 2018, so it was a very different world. A lot has changed in the last 8, 9 years at Salesforce, and it was almost like a startup division within a massive company. It was a lot of fun.
Love it. So can you tell us a little bit of from your point of view what has changed from those early years to what the ecosystem is now, and also that difference of working at Salesforce and working also on the partner side at Accenture, for example?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the most obvious change that we've seen is back in 2018, even into some of the early days in 2019, there was a team dedicated to working with these small up and coming partners. You would still get a partner account manager. I was a technical evangelist, so I was helping more on the architecture and infrastructure side for ISVs that were developing apps on the Salesforce platform. And we still got the technical review calls with the clients. They still guided them through passing security review, and they still had a partner account manager that helped them with their go to market strategy and with the Salesforce partnership and connecting them to the partner sales teams and the field sales teams. That started to transition quite a bit. So I think it was midway through 2019 was when my role started shifting. So instead of being able to have these dedicated calls, we had manned office hours, is what we called them, where partners could book a time. It was about a 30-minute block to meet with a technical evangelist and figure out exactly where the friction points were and what they needed help with. But at that point, it was generally a little bit too late. They would come in with a specific question, maybe around a Lightning Web Component or an Apex trigger that wasn't working. And towards the end of the call, we would diagnose what the real issue was and that it just wasn't architected properly to begin with. Because building on the Salesforce platform is very different from building from the ground up or building on AWS, since Salesforce is a relational database and it has out of the box features and objects. That was when I think we first noticed the first wave of shifts happening, and there was just less support, and we were unable to get in on the front end. Which, of course, now good luck even getting access to a partner manager if you're not a GSI. It's just not going to happen.
Right. So I think one of the advantage, I think people like you are called unicorns in the industry because you have the technical background, but you also understand that business side of things. So can you
Yeah.
maybe elaborate a little more of why it's important to architecture things from the beginning? What happens if you don't, and you have technical debt, and how that hurts you to scale in the long term?
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's look at it from the lens of an ISV because that's how the conversation started. If you build hyper custom and you're building everything with Visual Force. We're going to go way back to, 2015, 2016, 2017. If you're building everything with Visual Force and Apex and it's hyper custom and you put in 25 custom objects that have their own fields and their own data models, you don't know who is on the other end of that download, of that install, what customer is going to install it. And you don't know what their org limits are. You don't know what version of Salesforce they have. You don't know what customizations they have. And now you're running up to field limits, object limits potentially. You're running into storage limits if your app hosts file storage. Additionally, if you have any workflows, which I guess that's an outdated term now, flows. If somebody isn't on the right edition of Salesforce, you may push all their limits so that they can't get that level of customization, or they have to upgrade editions, which they may or may not need. Your app may put them over the limit. Not to mention, it could just add so much complexity. And as we've seen, I mean, I'm talking about less than 10 years ago. And how many products have I listed within the Salesforce world that they're not used anymore? They've been sunset. I mean, we have Classic. Nobody uses Classic anymore. Workflows, process automation, that has been sunsetted and everything's transitioned to flows. They've introduced and injected AI into it. Visual Force is completely outdated. It's all Lightning Web Components now. And they used to be able to wrap them in Visual Force, but I don't even think you can do that anymore. I've been hands off the tech for so long. I could be wrong. If you are building something that's hyper custom and you're not taking into consideration all the out of the box functionality that Salesforce offers you, you are running the risk of not only limiting what your customers can do post installation, but the advancements of your app. You'd have to rebuild it. And you put that into the context of a customer environment. Let's say you're working on even a mid sized org. How many partners have already touched that org? How many partners will touch that org? If you over customize or you architect it without a future state in mind, you're creating so much tech debt for that customer. It's like, I think, two, if not three or more times more expensive to re implement a solution with tech debt than it is to do it the first time correctly.
Absolutely. No, that can definitely be frustrating for everyone. The end clients that
Yeah.
they can rotate partners, new partners that are trying to do their best, but they need to clean up the technical depths. So definitely, I see your point of view. So can we fast forward to today? Would love to hear how uh, your past experiences at Salesforce, Accenture, advising now at partner, having your own firm, how that shaped your firm. So can you maybe tell the audience about what you're doing today and how are you advising partners in the ecosystem?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I started out in direct sales at Salesforce. And I started pretty early in my career. I think I had maybe two jobs under my belt by the time I went to Salesforce. And I'm going to share my age here by saying this, but I was 23 when I started at Salesforce. So I was pretty wet behind the ears and I had a lot of opportunity to learn when I didn't have much of a baseline of learning. I wasn't stuck in my ways, I guess you could say. And I always say, Salesforce has some of the best training. I learned so much sales and operational rigor working at Salesforce that has carried me throughout my career. At Accenture, I think this was definitely deepened, especially getting that partner lens of what good looks like, what it should look like. And when I moved on to smaller or mid sized organizations, I realized that all these things that were intrinsic to me, having been brought up in Salesforce, was not passed down to these other companies. I remember working with a client recently and they didn't know how to generate an ROI and they didn't understand why that was needed. And that was just so ingrained in me at Salesforce was, whipping up back of the napkin math on a demo to show the value that you would get from this investment. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest gaps between working at these massive organizations that have so many different processes like Salesforce and Accenture versus some of these scrappier organizations that maybe have much more unique implementations or niche problems that they're solving for and drive a ton of value. They don't know how to scale that or articulate that value in a way that makes customers and AEs alike excited to buy.
No, absolutely. I like how you try to, I won't say dumb it down, but focus on what matters at the stage you're at. And I think if you are Salesforce, Accenture with hundreds of thousands of employees and processes, it makes sense to have that robust of a school to train your people. But if you're a smaller firm, you probably need to have a different approach. One of the things that I like about you is that you advise to don't chase after bad revenue or say like no to bad revenue. So can you maybe elaborate why is that important, especially when you're starting out, when you need revenue to keep the business alive. But on the other hand, you don't want to be chasing these kind of bad clients that are not a good fit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say I'm a specialist in that 10 to 100, right? And I don't mean in actual figures, more metaphorically. That 0 to 1, 1 to 10, money is green and you want to look for that. You just want to find that. All money is good money. But that story that you're telling, that needs to be laser focused. I'll use an example from my personal business. I had several conversations with this company. It was really, really small, maybe 10 people, really brilliant founder that had built great solutions. But he didn't have the budget to invest in a full program. And I'm definitely not the cheapest. I'm not competing on price. That's not what I do. But I wanted to give him an entry point because I really wanted to help him. And we got to a point where I was negotiating down to roughly one half of what my baseline monthly engagement looks like. And I also generally do 3-month packages. And he wanted 1 month. So I was where I would have charged more for a smaller engagement. I was now cutting down my price to 50%. Uh, he wanted me to tie in results that were contingent upon the second half of payment within 4 weeks, which his sales cycle wasn't even 4 weeks. So it was just unrealistic. And I had to really sit and think to myself, how much is this worth? I could spend my time working on this client who already has this idea that I'm going to be trying to go down on price and increasing deliverables for this small amount. Or I could spend that energy looking for a full engagement and guarantee 3 months of revenue in a part of a larger transformation that I know I can deliver results on and my client will be happy with. And then I can document that story and have it lead to another client like that. And I realized that my time was better spent chasing the larger deals that I wanted to close more of rather than focusing on this little deal that I didn't want to replicate.
Got
And
it.
I think that when you're looking at the story of your business, every deal matters. You need money to keep the lights on, and you need deals that you can repeat and tell that story to try and get more of those. That's why I say I specialize in 10 to 100. I'm looking for businesses that are ready to scale what they're doing that works because I don't know if I'm the right person to help you get those scrappy deals because I don't know how to tell those stories in a way that gets you your ideal clients if you're not winning your ideal client right now.
Got it. So in terms of that 10 to 100, two questions there. One is, when do you know a firm is ready to start that 10 to 100 journey? What are the basics, or what are some of the foundational things a firm needs to have so they are ready to scale? And you probably don't have a playbook, but what are like some of the commonalities, or some of the things that usually help these firms get from 10 to 100?
That's a great question because I actually have had to develop a playbook. My business partner and I have spent countless hours figuring out how to codify that because it's something that's so intrinsic. When we talk to a company, when we look at their collateral, we can almost instantly say where they need help based off of what they have. And we're codifying that into a product. So obviously, we have to define what that looks like. So we've spent a lot of time being thoughtful about that. What we've come down to is on a baseline level, when we're thinking about this process that they want to scale, do we need to create net new material for it? That's going to be customers, case studies, figuring out where they have expertise. Or can we mine the business that they already have, the stories that they've already won and closed for that story and just sharpen it? And that's the biggest difference, right? There are some revenue values that I put on it. If a company is 0 to 5 million, they probably just need to refine their go to market strategy. They need to figure out what they're focused on, what kind of problems they solve, which type of customers they service, how they service them, and then scale that motion. So focus on winning those customers, get a good 3, 5 or so anchor stories, try and get about 20 customer accounts that you can lean on, that you can start to grow into. If they're 5 to 10, maybe 5 to 15 million, they have a good go-to-market focus. They just need to focus on sales. So that's when we focus on what repeatable offerings can get your foot in the door to net new customers, net new accounts, where you can then grow those accounts and start to create more of those stories and share those more. And then I would say 15 to 20 million and up is when we're starting to look at operationalizing that. Now, this is only if you're focused on one practice. So I guess this would be for that practice, right? I would generally anything under 30 million in revenue is when I'm looking at, okay, we probably need to create this repeatable process more. But if they've done it right from the beginning, we may be moving into more of a partner management strategy.
Got it. And in terms of the ecosystem, what's your assessment of the Salesforce ecosystem today? One of the criticism is that during the COVID years, the partner ecosystem was flooded with too many partners that lower the quality a little. So what's your assessment of the ecosystem today, and where do you think it's heading in the future?
Well, I think that it's starting to drive more value for customers because they're not looking for new partners. I would not start a business around Salesforce consulting at this point. It's very, very saturated. You're not going to get access to PAM. You have to have a strong strategy. If you're already in the ecosystem and you've already invested in it, I think there are absolutely ways to do well, but you have to have a verticalized strategy. So I don't think that there's a lack of value, but I think that customers are getting more discerning. And there are so many products on the market right now that reduce the cost of ownership for customers. And while I don't think it eliminates the need for a partner, I do think it reduces the reliance on partners long term. And I think that implementation companies specifically need to revisit their business plan because staff dog and maintenance work is going to be going out the window soon. We have companies like Swantide, Hubble, Knox, Sweep. All of those can do the administrative work for a company. It's not that they can do the full implementation and there will still require some level of admin there. And I think that services companies can leverage those tools to increase margin, increase customer value, reduce time to value. But overall, they need to rethink the strategy of how they're getting business in this ecosystem and how they're going to maintain their business.
Love it. And I know we're almost on time here, but to end, what's your opinion on AI might be killing SaaS? Do you agree, disagree, and where do you think the Salesforce ecosystem will be 3, 5 years from now?
Yeah, so a hard disagree. I think that AI is supercharging SaaS. I think it's making it more valuable. I think where we find problem is that AI is infused in almost every enterprise product on the market now. And if it's not, that product is behind and AI will be injected soon. The problem is, you know this because you work in consulting, most companies don't have good data and good data is required for valuable AI. You're going to just get hallucinations or really useless feedback if you don't have good data. And how many companies do you know that are actually logging deals, calls, emails into their CRM? So I think that I don't think Salesforce is anywhere near obsolete. I think that it is a brand new wave, and it's a wave that we can't even begin to really anticipate because we've never seen anything like this. But it's definitely not the end, and it's not slowing down.
Awesome. No, I love it. I also agree. I don't think AI will be killing SaaS, but to your point, will be amplifying and finding, I think, some of the things that Salesforce, for example, does really well out of the box. You're not going to have someone build an Agentforce on sales because Salesforce probably going to be verticalizing that. But then companies might want to build niche solutions for part of the process. So I think it's going to be a hybrid. But this has been a great conversation, Lila. I truly appreciate your time. How can people find you, connect with you, learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah, so Lela Koopal at LinkedIn, Lela. You can also follow our business page, Partnered. That's PRTNRD, because selling isn't only about the AE. And if you're interested in learning more about our curriculum and how we work with partners to drive partner led growth, partner led revenue, or you're an ecosystem owner that is looking to more effectively manage your partners to get value out of them, feel free to sign up for our Partner IQ waitlist. As I mentioned, we are codifying our curriculum and we are looking for early adopters and offering incentives for those early adopters.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that, and I truly enjoy the conversation. Have a great day, Lila.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye now.